Any ideas as to who might have said this?
Victor Hugo? Victor Hugo?
Victor
French
Hugo.
writer.
I hadn't
French
thought-
writer?
I know who he is. I hadn't thought of that. Any other thoughts as to who might have said it?
I think actually Aristotle said something about it.
Aristotle. All right. I didn't know that.
Which country? Which country?
Which country? Well, I mean, it could have been John Dewey, because John Dewey's vision of democracy is non-political as much as it is, pedagogical and educational. It could have been Wilhelm Reich, as you know, who came to the view of work, not politics, and the like. It's actually a quote from a book by Max Adler. And Max Adler was one of the leading theoreticians of what's called Austro-Marxism. And this book roughly translates as the Marxist vision of the state. Is in Reich's library. It was published in 1922. I'm pretty confident that Reich read this. I begin with this because I've come to feel that you really can't understand Reich's work democracy without knowing what was going on in Vienna in the 20s. And so I'm going to share a little bit of history with you. And here's the outline of my talk. I'm going to start with a little background. Can you see that? Oh, yeah. A little background on the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, what came to be known as Red Vienna, and Reich's political awakening and his activities. We'll then fast forward from 1930 to 1938 to Reich's rejection of politics as a meaningful avenue to social change, and look at the origins of love, work, and knowledge, and what he means by work democracy, and then I'll conclude with some thoughts about how to get from here to there. So that's sort of the outline of my talk. Wilhelm Reich came to Vienna in 1918. He was actually still in the military. He was on furlough. He hadn't been demobilized, but it was clear that the war was over. He entered the law school at the University of Vienna, and then after a semester changed to the medical school, and we know what happens then. So he comes in 1918. In 1927, Reich has his politicizing moment. Kohli had hers in 1968. Reich's politicizing moment comes July 15th, 1927. He becomes very politically involved, more so than most people are aware, and more so than he himself indicates in his own writing. He downplays the extent of his political engagement. He leaves Vienna late in 1930 for Berlin. So he's in Vienna from 1918 to 1930. During this period, something very exciting is happening in Vienna, and that's that I want to talk with you about. The First World War, the end of the First World War, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is broken up. Prior to the war, the Austro-Hungarian Empire had something like 52 million people in it. The capital was Vienna, with a population of over 2 million. And it was a very multicultural city. There were Czechs, there were Hungarians, there were all these people in Vienna. After the First World War, Vienna is restructured by the Triple Entente, by what are also called the Allies, and becomes a much, much smaller country. It ends up with a population of only a little over 6 million. The country of Austria, I'm sorry, I said Vienna, I meant Austria, is reduced in size to a country of a little over 6 million. Vienna loses some of its population, but it's still rather a healthy population of 1.6 million. And I think significantly that 10% of the population, over 10% of the population is Jewish. And I say that because the dominant political party in Vienna, the Social Democrats, is run by Jews, basically. And the dominant science of the day, psychoanalysis, is run by Jews, basically. And in fact, the Nazis came to refer to psychoanalysis as the Jewish science. When the Nazis attacked psychoanalysis in the 30s, it was because it was a Jewish science. To give you a little background on Red Vienna, I thought I had this up here. Where is conferences? Sorry. Hello. You get to see the inner workings of Bennett's computer. Names. Okay, and let's see, how can we project this? I got to make it smaller. Hold on one second. Don't go away. Stay tuned. Let's try this. You can sort of see it. I'm sorry. The projector shrinks my screen a bit, so it's a little hard to see. I could try to make this smaller, but then you won't be able to read it. In any case, in Austria at the time, the dominant political parties are the Christian socials, and for some reason, in the translations of Reich's Menschenstaat, the people in trouble, they're called Christian socialists. That's a total mistake. A mistake introduced by Myron Sharaf and then repeated by the current translator. The Christian socials, and the origin of their name was that they were a social club before the empire collapsed. So they're the Christian socials and the Social Democratic Workers' Party, also called the Social Democrats, also called the Socialists. These were the dominant political parties in Austria at the time. There was a very small and very ineffectual Communist Party, which for some reason Wilhelm Reich joined. And I'll try to suggest why I think he joined the Communist Party. The country was in the hands of the Christian socialists, and indeed the chancellor during this period was a priest. His name was Seppel. And the Christian socials sort of represented the rural, heavily Catholic, heavily conservative population. Vienna, on the other hand, was run by the Social Democrats. And Vienna became known as Red Vienna. This is the Vienna that Wilhelm Reich inhabited. And the Social Democratic Party, for one thing, each of these political parties had their own military elements. They had their own military wings. So there was the Heimwehr, which was sort of the home guard attached to the Christian socials. Can you see that? Yeah. And then the Schutzbund, that was a military wing of the Social Democratic Party. And even the small Communist Party had its own military wing. The Social Democrats were headed by Otto Bauer, a Jew. His sister, Ida, was Freud's Dora. So if you've ever read Freud, and you know there's this very famous case of this woman named Dora, well, that was Ida Bauer. Ignaz Seppler, I don't know how to say it, he was the chancellor of the whole country and the Christian social chancellor. Max Adler is the person I referred to earlier, is the theoretician of the Social Democratic Party. The Social Democratic Party felt that they could not take over the country politically. So they adopted a policy which a scholar who's written about them labels political fatalism and institutional optimism. That is, they gave up on trying to do something politically, and instead they turned Vienna into a mecca of socialist idealism. Now, when I say socialist here, you have to understand this was not an anti-capitalist regime, though ultimately that was their goal. It was a highly democratic regime. It was strongly opposed to the Bolsheviks. They're very fearful of a Bolshevik-style revolution. And as I say, the Communist Party was very, very weak. They believed in a socialist evolution, that by creating institutions that were humane, you could eventually evolve a population that would then go on to be socialist. I want to give you a sense of what was going on in Red Vienna at the time. And one of my main sources is a man named Anson Rabenbach. Here, let me give you my sources here for this talk. Am I going too fast? No. Are you able to follow me? I hope you The sources for what I have to say are books by Wright, The People in Trouble, which, if you haven't read, is a must-read. A lecture of his called The Sexual Misery of